Alright, so let's test that our stream actually is on correctly. Let's test that our stream, so the stream is on. Rearrange some windows here, and here we are. So the last time we left off at, we had added some, we had done a bunch of these message things, but the other big lift we did was adding some of the tests for a lot of these input fields. I don't think I have this started actually. Let's make sure we start that. So yeah, because this was one of the right, these things. Yeah, we needed the X and Y positions. Let's get this arranged properly. Here we are. And then because app had some, apps had some additional tests that we were going to work through. Right, okay. Super. All right, so let's continue. Which ones? I think the disabled tests were in, yeah, this is degrees enabled, disabled, ending shape enabled, disabled. Right, let's finish up these enabled, disabled. So what is this? This is degrees and ending shape. That's degrees and ending shape. So let's do, what else? We have size, X position, and Y position. Let's do the rest of those. So we can copy this. This is going to be size. This is enabled when what? Size is enabled when radial. It's disabled on the other ones. Okay. So size is enabled when gradient type is radial. Disabled when it's the same actually as here. Size. So size needs to be setup, gradient options, gradient type, yeah, radial, linear, and conic. Ending shape. Size. What does this look like? Size, it defaults to closest side. So that's the one. Except it's not going to be ending shape. These are all going to be size. And it's going to be gradient constants, closest side. Those might be good gradient words actually to add in. Where else are these used? Closest side. It's not used a ton, but still those might be like these things. Closest side, closest corner, farthest corner. I mean, I suppose I could grab them from the messages in the test. Yeah, I can do it. That's more straightforward here. Close, so these I need, actually I only need this one. And flyout test here. So the thing we would do here is instead of gradient word circle, all of these, this would be closest side. Size, closest, is that the, yeah, closest side, farthest corner, right. Okay. Expect screen get by label text. This would be get by label text. Label, the label text is going to be size. So I need size here. Get by label text, size, disabled to be false, and then disabled to be true for the other two. Let's run this test. So this is another one of these. Let's do yarn test. So we could do watch flyout.test. That is degrees enabled disabled, ending shape enabled disabled, size enabled disabled. Super. Alright, well, let's do the same thing for X position. This is X position. So X position is enabled on radial and conic. Radial and conic, and that's it. It's actually the same thing for Y. X and Y are enabled on radial, conic, and not linear. So X position enabled when gradient type is radial and conic. And disabled on linear. That's X position. So the X position state, X position 0.5, that is, where do you get that value from? Default gradient options X position. So we could do, yeah. Gradient options, default gradient options. Right, well you actually show up. So I don't think you are actually needed. Gradient type. I don't believe this is needed here, actually. Expect screen get by label text. Screen get by label text. X position percent. X position. So here. Screen get by label text, X position, and also Y position. So screen get by label text, X position, disabled to be false, false, and then true. So I'm expecting that to pass. Right. And you would do the same thing for Y position. Y position would literally be the same thing. Y position, radial, conic, and linear. There you go. And there's Y position. Now, I believe that I can comment out, I believe that size is unnecessary, because I believe that happens in the default. Size closest side, size closest side. Yeah, that happens in the default actually, so that is unnecessary, which means these things are all unnecessary, and those tests will still pass, right? Ending shape gradient words circle. Ending shape gradient word circle. Yeah, that's the default, which means all of these are all unnecessary. There we go. There it is. Super. So which one of these was not passing? Describe only flyout content. Okay, that's all passing. Ending shape enabled when enabled and gradient type is linear conic. Right. This is the disabled or enabled state of these various input fields. Alright. I don't actually need to close this side. And there we go. Wonderful. So that is flyout test. Now the other thing is we have done tests for the enabled or disabled state of these input fields. The onChange handlers, disabled or not, that's handled in the flyout test. We've done that. Gradient options, gradient type displays an appropriate input, updates the gradient type on change. So it displays an appropriate input and updates the type on change. Yeah, and then it's enabled or disabled. Huh, okay. Updates the gradient type on change. Display, get by display value, gradient words. Okay. Gradient type, that's degrees. Alright, so let's do it for, this is size, would be the next one. So size displays an appropriate input. So screen, get by labeled text, gradient words, get by label text. I feel like the label text is actually better to grab by, yeah, I feel like the label text is better to grab it by the messages, because that's the value. I feel like these things are better to grab it from the label text type. Gradient type. Oops, messed that up. Size would be here, this one. So get by label text, this would be size. And you could also do here degrees. You could get this one, get by label text of degrees. So get by label text size to be in the document, and then so the label and an input field. Does the get by label text, is that getting the label element or the input element? I'm a little unclear on that. Let's go find out. So this is what? This is React Testing Library. This is React Testing Library here, which would be, what do I need? React Testing Library, I need the get by label text. This will search for the label that matches the text match, and then find the element associated with that label. that you query an actual label element, you can provide a selector. Get by label. I think the get by label text actually returns the input field. So for example, if we log the thing that is returned here, if we log what shows up here, this is in app relative path. I don't need those ones, but I do want watch that one, the app.test. So I think, yeah, it's the select element, or in this case it's a select instead of an input, but that's the get by label. Right, okay. So this is get by label text size to be in the document. Yeah. So there is a size, and I could do, I mean, I guess I could assert that it has the default value. That would be another thing. So I could do select get by label text size, and then expect select to be in the document, and then I could say expect select I guess I could also say get by display value. Now what does that do? Get by display value. The current value of a form element. Get by label text. I mean, it could be select dot expect select dot value, and this would be to be, and it would be default gradient options dot size. Default gradient options dot size. Right, which then means I could actually change these things. Screen get by label text degrees. Get by display value. The current value of a form element. I guess it's two different ways of doing the same thing. Screen get by display value. Default gradient options degrees. It would be to be default gradient options degrees. Screen get by display value default gradient options degrees. I could do it really either way. I'll do it. I'll leave it the first way. That's fine. Select to be in the document, and then expect. So we're doing screen get by display value, default gradient options size, and then to be in the document, like that. We will leave it as is. Now for the degrees on change, get by display value degree input. So this is size input, and I would want to do get by label text again, size. So screen get by label screen get by label text size, that's the size input, and then change on the size input, except you give it a target of, what are the other options? Except you cannot be linear, you have to be radial. We're going to say farthest side, a value of gradient words, oops, where's my W, farthest gradient words, okay, I do need farthest side for this. I need values of these to go in here. Closest side, farthest side, gradient words, so here, gradient words dot farthest side, and then expect screen get by display value, gradient words dot farthest side to be in the document, except our setup needs to pass a okay, no, which means you need to do some other changes first, which means we need to change the gradient type to be not linear. We need to change the gradient type to be not linear. So size, although I'm not sure if it's disabled and you still fire the, I'm curious about that. If it's disabled and you still fire the input on a test, will it still, interesting. Because that is going to be disabled. If I do get by display value farthest side, yeah, so if I do get by display value farthest side dot disabled, this is going to be false. My expectation is that would be true. Disabled false, that's disabled false, that's going to fail, because that would be enabled. Disabled false, disabled is true, yeah, it's disabled, right. Interesting that it doesn't, that can be disabled and you can manually fire the event on it through the test. Okay. Alright, so that's size. Do I want to be, am I being consistent about how I'm doing these? So, yeah, I think I'd like to change this degrees. This would be screen. We can say get by label text, essentially, instead of get by display value. I can do screen get by label text degrees. There's your degree input. Same thing here. This could be get by label text linear. Get by label text, this would be messages linear, which means we need that from messages linear. Unexpected token, do it again. Enter to trigger a test run. Screen get by label updates the gradient type on change. Gradient type input. Screen get by label text. The label text is not linear. The label text is gradient type. the label text is not linear. The label text is gradient type. There we are. Get by display value, gradient words linear, display value, gradient words linear. Okay, so there's size. Next, let us do what's after size, which is, so we got X position and Y position. All right, X position, oops, size displays, well, size doesn't display an input, size displays a, I feel like size is a select. Yeah, size is a select. Ending shape is also a select. Gradient type is also a select. Yeah, gradient type displays an appropriate select. Degrees displays an appropriate input. Describe displays an appropriate select. Size displays an appropriate select. X position displays an appropriate input. All right, setup, screen, get by label text. This would be a label text of X position. Label text of X underscore position to be in the document. Get by display value. Default gradient options dot X position. X default gradient options dot X position, yes, to be in the document. Now updates the, that should be updates the size on change, right? Updates the X position on change. Screen, get by label text, this is X position. Fire event, this is X position input. X position input. Now this should really be a size select. Let's see how size select. Size select, degree input. Ending shape. Did I do an ending shape? I think I forgot ending shape here. Yes, I think I forgot ending shape. Ending shape. X position displays an appropriate input. Okay, X position input, right. Fire event change, X position target value. Let's say the value is going to be, I think the value is going to be I think it's going to be an integer, and then it gets converted into a decimal in the in the logic. So I believe this value is going to be, say, if we did 46, and then expect screen get display by value 46 to be in the document. X position. Screen get by display value default gradient options X position. Value 50. What is the unable to find the element with the display value 0.5? does it make random percent in range? Add or remove stop position handler. Stop percent change handler. Alright. Change handler. Input change handler. Value math.round. Okay. So this needs to be, oops, app.test. So I need to provide it with a, which one is it failing on? Let's get this, get by display value. It needs to be exposition. This one. This would be default gradient options exposition as percent. Default gradient options x position as percent. That is a long name. Is that and then it would be this thing again here to be except that's going to be the 40. It's not it's not quite the right thing. That needs to be 46 there in the document. Okay. Math.round 0.46 times 100. Interesting. Get by display value default gradient options x position as as percent. Okay. And what is the problem here? Oh, found multiple elements with the display. Oh, display value 50. It's finding both of them. Okay. Get by label text x position. I guess this could be expect get by label text x position value, and I would say to be this. Has to be slightly different. As a string, right? It's just as straightforward to do it like this, and then comment that out. No reason for the extra variable. It's only being used the one time. Updates the x position on change. Right. So then the same thing for the y. The same thing for the Y position. Displays an appropriate input. Instead of all these X positions, these would be Y position. To be default gradient options, Y position times 100 updates the Y position on change setup. This would be Y position input, get by environment change, target value 46. So we have math round 46 to be in the document, yeah. There's the Y position. Now there's another one I didn't do. I didn't actually do ending shape, which should come before size. Here, there should be another one for ending shape. Displays an appropriate select. Screen get by label text. This should be ending shape to be in the document. Get by display value. This would be gradient words dot circle, or default gradient options ending shape, really. Default gradient options ending shape to be in the document. Updates the ending shape on change setup. This would be ending shape select screen get by label text ending shape. Fire a change event which would have, let's say, ellipse, and that's gonna be interesting that I do have circle in the gradient words, but I don't have ellipse. I do have ending shape circle, ending shape ellipse. Yeah, I feel like there should be a ELLIPSE of ELLIPSE. Gradient words dot ellipse. Gradient words dot ellipse, and then get by display value. So getting by display value, it'll have a display value of should have a display value of ellipse, L-I-P-S-E, degrees. I guess that's really ending shape. Degrees ending shape size. Get by display value, default gradient options, ending shape. And what is that doing? That's doing screen, that's ending shape, get by display value, default gradient options, ending shape, gradient words, circle, to be in the document. Value, get by display value. What is display value doing? Oh, the current value of a form. The current value. Okay. Yeah, so display value is different from get by text. So display value is this thing, whereas get by text is that. Those are different. So get by display value, you could literally do the same thing, default gradient options, ending shape. You could also do circle. It's a little shorter. Default gradient options, degrees, that is necessary. Okay, so ending shape updates the ending shape on change. Gradient words dot ellipse, and then get by display value ellipse display value ELLIPSE. I feel like that should not have worked because it should have lowercase ellipse. I feel like update the ending shape on change. Gradient words ellipse. Update the ending shape on change. Let me see it. Expect screen get by text high. What's up? Expect, let's have to be in the document. I want to see what the ending shape looks like. Ending shape. That's not the text match. Ending shape, there you are. Ending shape, disabled is true. ID is ending shape, name is ending shape. Option is value circle. Option is value ellipse. So, am I doing this right? Select to be in the document. How does that would make sense for why I'm getting what appears to be odd test results. MDN select. The select element select is there a how to tell, let's look at store as global variable, and let's log temp1, temp1. Child elements. Options, selected options, text content type, how to programmatically tell which option is selected. Yeah, I think I'm doing something wrong in the React select. That is not I want. I want forms. Creates a drop-down list. Is it selected? Instead of using the uses a value attribute on the root select tab. Input type text. They all accept the value attribute that you can use to implement a. Note that the coconut option is initially selected because of the selected attribute. React, instead of using the selected attribute, uses a value attribute on the root select tag. This is more convenient in a control component. We need to update it in one place. Input type text and select all work. They accept a value attribute that you can use to implement a control component. Value. No, it's not there, it's here. This is ending shape. Yeah, select value, gradient options, ending shape. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, so the thing that, okay. So the thing that I am asserting against is the value of the ending shape. So screen get by label text ending shape is ending shape select, and then the assertion actually then needs to be ending shape select dot value to be so this would be gradient words circle and then gradient words ellipse. Updates the ending shape on change. Yeah, there you go. And so if I change this back to circle, I'm expecting that to fail now. Received circle, received ellipse, expected circle, right. Okay, but that also means that I need to change the other selects that I'm using. Degrees is an input, that's fine. Gradient options is a select. So this one, gradient type input, screen get by label text. I need to assert that gradient type input dot value is gradient constants dot gradient type, gradient constants dot gradient type. Oh, default gradient options is where I did it. Where'd you go? There you are. Default gradient options, gradient type. And then here, radial, gradient type value to be gradient words dot radial. Here to be gradient words dot radial. I'm asserting essentially on the value because it still displays all of these in the DOM. Those options. Okay, there's gradient type. Ending shape also needs to be adjusted. Get by label text ending shape right, ending shape value is the one I changed. Size, get by label text size, this would be expect size select value to be, what's the default? Closest side, which would be gradient words dot closest side, gradient words dot closest side, default gradient options dot size, and then expect after the change to be gradient words dot farthest side, like that. Alright, next, that's size. It's ending shape, that's size. Next is X position, which is not a select. X position is an input field when I'm checking the get by display value is the value of an input field. Okay, so those are fine. All right, adds a color, gradient options, gradient type, degrees. Let's change gradient type to be consistent here, which is, you do gradient type. Gradient type, degrees, ending shape, size, X position, and Y position. Wonderful. This is X position, Y position, and ending shape, that it exists, and that the click handler functions correctly. Alright, so that is a whole bunch of tests. that we have just added. Wonderful. Let's run the whole test suite. Let's see if there are any other failing tests. Well, look at that. We got a couple failing tests. All right. Which ones failed? Which tests? We have, oh, okay. Sure. Color. So let's look at the color component, and then also at the color test. Was it color or colors? They're actually different. It's colors is the one. Yeah, color is fine. It's colors, which is the component with a failing test. Expect. Okay, yes, these should not be there. These should not be hard-coded. What is, let's narrow down the test, watch that one. Narrow down the amount of tests that are running so we can concentrate better. Unable to find an element with the text color. This could be because the text is unable to find an element with the text colors. Where messages contact, okay. You probably need you're going to need the same, this thing. You're going to need this app test container from utils test utils. Import app test container from utils test utils, and you're going to need colors, and then probably the same thing. You can import the although if you don't actually need it, there's no reason to have it. I mean, unless you absolutely need it, I would say don't include it. Extra space and extra time, which is unnecessary. Here, and then set up. So this should actually be over here. You don't need props. You can remove that. But these should not be there. You should be grabbing those from messages. For example, color should be, this should be import messages from translations messages. And this should be, you should grab the ones you need. The ones you need are what? You need color and type the color picker, optional stop percent. You're gonna need, okay, you're gonna need these ones. And okay, type the color hexadecimal format explainer, color picker, optional stop percent, and delete color. So you're gonna need color here, type the color here, color picker here, optional stop presets here, and delete color here, like that. Oh, actually, a hexadecimal format explainer. Cannot destructure property color of messages dot because the messages is the default export of here, like that. There we are. Displays the column headers. Wonderful. Okay. Now, if I believe I remember correctly, there was still an additional failing test. Yeah, here we are. Gradient utils returns right. Okay. And oh, there is a failing color test. Okay. Let's deal. That's going to be a separate effort to address that. Let's do the color, the failing color test. So, which means we need color singular and color dot test. So the color and the color test. What is failing about this one? Yarn test. Watch that one. Probably, yeah, it probably needs the same. What does the color component do? Ah, I think it's that thing. And why exactly is this failing? Get all by role button, name X to have length 2, received length 1. Button displays a delete button. Color, because there's one of them, so it would be to have length 1. Like that. There you go. Which then means that if we yarn test, that's the gradient utils test. Yeah. Okay, the gradient utils test definitely needs some work, but that is expected. All right, so now let us add these changes that we did in, displays an appropriate select, right? Added all of these in, yes, right? That's colors.tests, yes, right? Yes, that's for gradient constants, right? Okay, so this bit of tests adds tests for, it's really the input fields. Adds tests for input fields is really what this was. Adds tests for input fields. Adds tests for input fields. Yes. All right, wonderful. Let's push that. Push origin to main. Yes. Okay, next up. Next up, we have, there was an additional failing test. I think 2 failing tests, actually. 1 test suite. Oh, yes, run all tests. Right, there it is. Two test suites failed. That's interesting. Gradient utils, that's the expected one. And, oh, stop positions. Oh, here's stop positions. Okay, let me fix stop positions. Not entirely sure why I didn't see that before. Stop, yeah, let's address the stop positions failing. So, stop positions as well as stop positions test. Let's focus in on the stop positions test. I imagine get my label text first. Unable to find an element with the text add. That's probably, it's probably because it needs the app test container. That would be my hunch here. So let's add that in. App test container, and then you're going to need to render app test container, yes, and you render that inside of there. And I think yeah, that's it. App test container, right? And there's all the stuff. Wonderful. Although you have, yeah, you got a fair amount of hard-coded things. Let us not do that. Let's remove those hard-coded things. So let's import. It's a default messages from translations, messages, and then we will destructure some things. What do you need? You need add. And what else do you need? All of these things. Add. First. Looks like we're going to need second as well. First here. All of these, and then second, we can be consistent. Second, like that. Wonderful. Okay, so there is stop positions. Excellent. W. So that is updates, what is this? Updates stop positions test. That is straightforward. Add and commit. This is updates stop positions tests. Updates stop positions tests, yes. Push origin to main, yes. Wonderful. Now there should be the run all tests, yes. It should only be the gradient utils should be the only test suite failing. There you are, gradient utils. All right, let's concentrate in on gradient utils. Gradient utils and gradient utils of the tests. Okay, so what are we looking at here? So gradient utils, so we need to add a different we need to add tests to handle radial and conic types of gradients for this make gradient string function. Pardon. That's really where all the changes have been. It's been in the make gradient string. The random color generator and the make gradient color stops. That has been, those are fine. The real large portion of the changes have been in this gradient utils, this make gradient string function. So let's first address the failing tests here. So why are they failing? So let's focus in on the gradient utils test. One suite, two tests fail. Let's look at the first one. Cannot destructure property gradient type of undefined. Gradient cannot destructure line 6. Make gradient string line 6. Okay, that sounds like it's the wrong, yeah, it's the wrong one. Okay, so gradient utils, make gradient string. Handles multiple color stops with different amounts of color stops correctly. So that should be I feel like that's a no stops, one stop. Make gradient color stops is the color object stop positions, object stop positions, make gradient color stops. Ah, okay, so this is actually this color string really should be its own small utility function. It shouldn't be part of, because there's a make gradient color stops, and this should be something like combine gradient color stops. Yeah. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do another one. Export const combine gradient color stops some amount. It's literally this logic, so it's copy and paste that logic, and then you're returning this color string, which means you need to take the colors and what else? Colors.reduce accumulator color object I, accumulator color object color, make gradient color stops, and then color object. Yeah, that's it. You only need the colors. Combine gradient color stops. So here, this would be color string equals make gradient color stops, and you pass in the colors. Combine gradient color stops. So now we have a combined gradient color stops. That needs to be after this one. So describe combine gradient color stops like this, which is, it's this logic here. Handles multiple, it's all of this logic. Handles multiple colors with different amounts of color stops correctly. So this would be, we're going to need combine gradient color stops. Make gradient color string, make gradient color stops, combine gradient color stops, random color generator. This would be result equals make gradient color stops with colors, and it would be expect result to be, where does the space come? Gradient degree comma space color string. So the color string is this, that. Let's describe only this one. Alright, so no good. How is it different? Oh, okay. There was a typo. Alright, super. So there is combined gradient color stops. Alright, so we can get rid of that. Suppose we could do it like that. Probably nice to have a space there. There's combined gradient color stops. Now, so I have separate tests for combined gradient color stops, which is the color string. I have a separate test for make gradient color stops, which goes into color string. So the bit really that I'm testing here is if it is linear, if it's radial, or if it's conic. So make gradient string linear, radial, conic. So I feel like it would make sense to have different describe blocks for linear, radial, and conic, radial and conic, and then something like this one would go into here. Suppose we could put that up here. Linear returns a linear gradient string. So that's kind of long. Read it down here, it's easier. Returns a linear gradient string. So if gradient type is linear, there's a linear, the degrees, and then whatever color string, which is tested elsewhere. Yeah, okay. Make gradient string linear returns a linear gradient string. So make gradient string default colors, which are where default colors. Okay. So make gradient string, but you actually get past default colors and then aha. So you're going to need to get past default gradient options from gradient constants, default colors, and then default gradient options here, make gradient string, and then expect result and then expect result to be linear gradient 90 degrees. Expect result to be that thing. Alright. So then for conic, pardon, radial is the next one. For radial, ending shape, size at position, position, color string. It's whatever ending shape you pick. Pardon. Size ending shape, size. So this would be radial, be something like makes a returns a radial gradient string. Default colors, default gradient options is not going to be the thing. So let's have merge here. Import merge as merge from low dash. Okay. So then here, call it gradient options, merge, a new one, default gradient options with a new object that has, because you need radial, gradient, else if gradient type equals radial. So gradient type gradient words dot radial. So let's also we can grab it from here. This is gradient words dot radial. So for a radial gradient string, ending shape, size, x position, y position. Ending shape, size, x position, y position. So this would be expect result to be ending shape, size, circle, closest side, 50-50. So this should be radial, circle, closest side at 50%, 50% color string. There it is, returns a radial gradient string. Alright, super. Now let's do for conic, gradient type, gradient words, conic. And for conic, you need degrees. I think it should be the same thing, or largely the same thing. Conic dash gradient from degrees, which defaults to 90. So it's going to be from 90 DEG at, and then math.round position, percent, 50%, color string. All right. Now, this isn't, I'm not including invalid input into these. And actually, I don't have any input validation on what's coming into, or do I? Because the only thing they could type, I guess they could type something here, but yeah. Okay, so there's no input validation on this, which is an issue. I think that's not an issue for today, though. There is radial and conic. All right, run all of the tests. Run all tests. Yes. Excellent. Passing, completely passing test suite. Wonderful. So this is gradient utils. Wonderful. Add tests around radial gradient, which is something we did. Wonderful. Flyout, yeah, we added tests for those, for gradient word, gradient type. We added tests for that. Better name, improvement, test utils. We didn't add tests for that one. App test container. Where are we at? Checking where we're at time-wise. All right, so we got about 30 minutes for our current session. I wonder if we could do an app test. Well, let's commit here, because we have accomplished a thing. You accomplished a good unit of work. So this is, we have added, this is add things, and then commit. This is gradient utils tests. So this is adds gradient dash utils tests. ADDS gradient utils tests. Yes. All right. Push origin main. Yes. Okay. Super. Now, an additional thing we could do is there is a test utils app test container. So the point of using app test container is to be able to read from context and read those messages. So what would be the thing to test there? It would be that one of the values is the message value. That's essentially the test. Okay, I feel like that would be straightforward-ish actually. Let's have a new file. And so what is this? This is test utils.test.js. And so the test for this is what? we're going to need to import React, and then we need to import, we're going to need app test container from test utils, and then this would be describe test utils, and we would describe app test container, and the app test container the assertion here is, or the general thing that I want to test is that provides a context with the messages values. Provides a context with the messages values. Now to test that, we need to do what? To test that, we need to test that it provides a context with the messages values. We need to render app test container is it's a function. It's a component, really, is what it is. App test container. We need to give it a child of another component, which could actually be an inline function like this. And we need to import use context, because the context that you need to use is you need messages context, so we need to import, I think we need that same line, import messages and then messages context from translations messages, because we need react.use context, because you need messages context. I suppose we could actually we could have one in particular. So what's one message in particular? What's the first one? Add, sure, add. And then the thing that we are asserting is, and you could essentially return add. And then the assertion here is that expect screen get by text add, you could say to be in the document. Unexpected use of screen, because we're gonna need, I believe, if we do fly out.test, yeah, we need screen and render from, we need render too. Render, you have to render this whole thing here. Oops, gotta render this there. which means we need import render and screen from at testing library React, like that, and then test utils. And we need add equals messages, like that. And then if we run this, so this is yarn test watch, that one. Alright, so we got a failed test. Unable to find, okay, get by text add. Alright, let's, what did it actually render? It rendered a body with a div. React use context. Okay. Hello, this is text. It should be rendering. Interesting. Why is that? App test container. Interesting. Am I not doing that right? That's a component. Right. Okay. Let's try component and then define it before here, and then component like there, and then render it. Yeah, there's the thing. Hello, this is text. So when we return add, there it is, provides a context with the messages value. Now, okay, so what was I misunderstanding about? Oh, React not use context like that. So how do you oh, okay, I think I need, if I was going to do it that way, I think I would need, I think it's advanced React without JSX. Each JSX element, what about the create component? Ah, okay, React create element. Hello. Ah, so I wonder, okay, so I wonder if I did the same thing as React, oops, if I did here, React.create element type props and children, React.create element, and if I did this in line, create element, type, no props and no children. So the type can be a string or a, yeah, there it is, okay. The type can be a string or a component, which is simply a function. Got it. Cool. There it is. There is test-utils. All right, awesome. We have added tests for test-utils. Wonderful. Run all of the tests. Look at all those passing tests. That's a good feeling. But more than that, actually, now because I have confidence that I can refactor things without breaking something, because I have a whole suite of tests that will let me know if something I did broke something. Colors, right, that's a small improvement. Better naming, thinking on that, and that is these are notes really for later. All right, so that was, what we just did was oops, and the diff, right, the add tests and the test-utils. So this is add, and then this is adds test-utils test. Adds test-utils test, right. Push origin main. Super. Up to date with origin main. All right, so what else do we want to, what's a good next step for this? Let's take a look at the app as it is. We can add a random color. Yes. Okay. Gradient type, we got linear, radial, and conic. There's some degrees that can change. X position and Y position. We can add maybe another color stop here. Or we could take both of these out. We could take all of these out and do it very evenly. Add another random color. I think that's pretty cool looking. And there it is, conic gradient from 113 degrees at 62%, 50%, those things. Now if you the specified value does not conform to the required format. Yeah, so that's okay. Right. Okay. Degrees, X position and Y position. Now, why is that not moving? Oh, it's probably because, yeah, it's probably because this color 1 is not accurate. Yeah, there it is. Right, there you go. Okay, so I do actually need to have some input validation. Okay, So input validation is definitely a thing that I need to handle. These are, I can get rid of some of these commented lines here, as well as some of these other comments. Change the gradient mode, linear, radial, and conic. We actually did all of those. There is repeating linear and repeating radial are definitely things. Circle input for changing. Oh, right, okay, that's an improvement. I think input validation is going to be the next big thing. It's especially, it's essentially on this color field. That's really the one that I need. Change it to a radial gradient or a linear gradient or a conic gradient. So, what are we looking at today? Okay. So, I think this is really going to be the next thing. Input validation. That's going to be next. Okay, so yeah, so next time we're going to do a little work on some of the input validation for this, so that when you type something that's incorrect here and then you go to make another change, it's not going to change until you fix that value. Yeah, and then see how it jumps to the change. So we want to change this so that if you try to type something that's incorrect, it says, whoa, you're not typing an accurate thing. So that'll be next time. For next session, we'll get going on that, and it'll probably it might perhaps make this relate to doing that. So okay, that's all for this session. I'll see you next time. Bye.